Hi, everyone. Welcome to In-Depth Super Bowl. I'm Janine Poggi, Senior Editor here at Ad Age, and thank you for joining us as we count down to Super Bowl 55. There's no question this year's big game commercials are poised to look vastly different than what we have come to expect over the years. Like everything else, COVID has certainly upended the Super Bowl ad game, and it's pushing the usual big game advertisers to rethink their strategy, and it's creating some new opportunities for some first timers to get into the game. Over the course of the next 2 hours, we will hear from marketers and creatives about how they are looking to entertain Super Bowl viewers following a year of so much sadness and fear. We'll also discuss how brands are responding to the social justice movement in their commercials. And we'll also take a look at how one brand created their big game spot in the midst of certainly many pandemic production challenges. I'd like to first thank our sponsors for making this event happen. We have co-presenting sponsors Shutterstock and Twitter, and supporting sponsors Sentient Decision Science and Talkwalker. Thank you to them. To kick things off, we're going to bring in some of the brands that are making their first foray into the Super Bowl ad game to discuss why this was the right time to buy in, and also what we can expect from their first time out. Joining me now is Ross Martin, President and Chief Experience Officer at Known, which worked on the campaign for Shift for Shop, the brand that's sponsoring the first civilian mission to space. We have Gali Arnon, CMO at Fiverr, the online freelance marketplace, and Rebecca Dunphy, President of Personal Care at Kimberly-Clark North America, whose Huggies brand will be the first diaper brand to ever air a commercial in the Super Bowl. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hi.
Great to be here.
Hi. Hello.
So I would like to begin, this is a big year with lots of first-time advertisers joining the fray, and I really want to get a sense of why. Why is this a year for brands to make their first entry into the Super Bowl? And maybe, Gali, you can start. Why was it the right time for Fiverr to come in?
Yes, so I think this year was certainly unusual, if you can say it like this. I think we've been humbled to see how Fiverr has been a resource for so many people around the world. On one side, freelancers, talented, creative people from all over the world that have been able to find job opportunities at Fiverr on our platform. And on the other side, businesses of all sizes that been able to find resources and digital services to make them adapt, be more agile, and kind of shift through those unprecedented times. So this year has been a landmark year for Fiverr. After 10 years in which we've been kind of in the forefront of the future of work, of those processes that has been accelerated because of the pandemic. And we thought there's it can't be any bigger than the Super Bowl or a bigger stage to tell our story to a bigger audience among the biggest brands in the world.
So would you say the pandemic really was a driving force in this, both from the side of people looking for freelance work and businesses looking for freelance employees, but then also, you mentioned this idea of the future of work, which we've certainly been, looking at here and paying attention to, and that's something that you have been talking about, since the company started. Is this a moment to talk about what that means moving forward post-pandemic?
Yes, absolutely. I think those processes started way before the pandemic. The movement of the freelancer segment, which we've seen growing all around the world, the ability to work remotely using technology and the internet, collaboration tools that has been really emerging, and many companies are using them. I think all of those technologies, together with the changes, the shift in generations, where the millennials are looking for flexibility and are looking to fulfill themselves rather than to find stability in their work, led to the difference in the way people are working. And I think what happened with the pandemic is that it just accelerated processes that started years and years before. And what we've seen now that people really understand that the future of work is actually the present, and companies like Fiverr are really offering solutions to the new world we all live in, to the digital transformation you all been experiencing in the last year. So we can say it's because of the pandemic, but really those are processes that started way before and been accelerated in the last year.
So when you think of, the beer, chips, and soda brands that are typically in the game, diapers certainly doesn't necessarily fit in there. Rebecca, why did Huggies buy in this year, and what opportunity do you see now that perhaps, you hadn't seen before for the diaper brand?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's definitely different. This is the first time that Huggies is going to be in the Super Bowl, obviously. And it came from a couple of different places, to be honest. So I think, part of the journey that we've been on is thinking about kind of elevating the purpose of the Huggies brand and what we're about. And one of the key pieces of that is understanding this tension that parents are having where there's all sorts of things out on social media, right? Around do this, don't do that, tons of different information, conflicting advice. If you follow parent blogs, it's like all of this bombarding of stuff, right? And what we found is honestly, parents are seeking ways to just understand and trust their gut. Because we all know, as parents, that's a big part of what parenting is about. And ultimately, parents know what's best for their baby and for their child. And so we want to be part of that experience. As we think about the pandemic, that actually has gotten, I'd say, augmented. When we think about all of the pressure, all of the strain that's on parents through the pandemic. And so we've continued to feel like this is an incredibly relevant insight and a place where really we can come in and have a great voice as a baby brand around this whole idea of we got you, baby. We've got your back. We're here to be with you on this journey and just enjoy it. And that's how our creative is really coming to life. And when Droga 5 came with the idea of, hey, we could actually use some user-generated content of babies born that day to really celebrate and kick off this brand new campaign that we're going to be leveraging throughout the year, we were really excited to bring that forward on a big stage.
I have to say, I'm loving the Huggies in the background, the wipes and your diaper sitting on the shelf over there. I'm liking that those props over there. It's great.
Yeah.
So Ross, obviously, a different direction than diapers for Known's first foray into the Super Bowl. And in fact, this actually marks, if I'm not mistaken, is today the day? No, maybe in a couple of days, Known's 1-year anniversary as the agency in its current form. Can you talk a bit about what Shift for Shop is doing and the excitement around that?
Yeah, thanks for having all of us, Janine, and thanks for the coverage that you keep putting out on this year's Super Bowl, because it's awesome. And I hope everyone now knows your new nickname is Janine Full Screen.
Now they do. Thank you for that.
Full Screen Janine in his house here. I'm super psyched about this, but I'm also super psyched about Sunday itself because it represents so many firsts, right? So for Known, our first year birthday is on Friday. So this whole week is like a big birthday party for us. But the Super Bowl itself, there's so many firsts. It's the first time that one of the teams that's playing in the game is actually hosting it, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's the first time we're seeing such a huge discrepancy in the ages of the protagonists. The GOAT, Tom Brady, one of the oldest quarterbacks to ever play, against the new GOAT, who they're calling the kid, Patrick Mahomes, who's one of the youngest and best up-and-coming players in the NFL. This is also the first time there's nobody in the stands that paid to be there. It's only frontline responders who the NFL is bringing to the game. And then, of course, you've got the entire at-home dynamic. No Super Bowl parties because they're not allowed. So we have smaller groups who will be focusing more than ever on the event. And so for us at Known in our first year to be able to create not one, but 2 campaigns that launched this year at the Super Bowl, one for NFL and the NFL Shop. And as you mentioned, one for Inspiration 4, the first civilian mission to space, which was announced last night by Elon Musk and Jared Isaacman, is an incredible human first. So we have a first human achievement where for the first time in history, 4 civilians with no astronauts accompanying them will be going into outer space. And our client, Shift for Shop, which just launched, and is an incredible platform for e-commerce, is sponsoring this whole thing. So the fact that this is all coming together in a moment when we need so much hope, right? When 2020 took so much from us. And now in a moment like this, on the biggest stage in the world, we have a message of hope and inspiration and human achievement, perseverance. It's a fantastic moment for everyone, and I just can't wait.
Is that, you mentioned these ideas and themes of hope, inspiration, and all of that. Is that, do you think, the overarching themes or takeaways from this year's Super Bowl commercials? And is it, I'm hearing even from a lot of the first timers that that's the kind of message they're going in with. Is that a draw to the game too, that, you wanted to kind of bring that message to this audience?
Yeah, I would say this, there are lots of people pontificating on what we're going to see. And some of us have had the fortune of seeing most of the spots already, like you, Janine, so you know what's coming. I would say you divide Super Bowl sponsors into essentially 3 categories. One, you've never heard of me, and now you will, right? So that's one. Number 2 is you forgot about me, please come back. And number 3 would be, I wish you knew me differently. And so you can go with humor, you can go with sentimentality, you can go with unifying the world behind a common purpose. But if you're in this game, if you are stepping into the fray, and it's scary for brands, especially the first timers, then you're really fitting into one of those 3 profiles.
Right. And Gali, we actually have a teaser that we played on Ad Age remotely yesterday, showing a little bit of Fiverr spot. Maybe we could show that here now. So I know that you won't be actually releasing the full ad until game time, but maybe you could talk a little bit about the creative direction. That is, for those of you watching, 4 Seasons Landscaping, which of course was the site of a President Donald Trump rally, press conference, around the election. Can you talk about how that came together and a little bit of the creative?
Sure. Seeing the teaser, we couldn't be more excited about this story. So, as I said, Fiverr is an amazing resource for small, medium businesses to shift, to adapt, to build their businesses, to grow their businesses. And I think the 4 Season Total Landscaping and Marie Saravo, the owner of this business, is an amazing example to everything we preach for. We feel like we're sharing the same value with this amazing business. And why is it so amazing? Because, when the opportunity came, and it came big time for this small business in Philadelphia, the way they took this opportunity and played along with it, it was absolutely fabulous to see. So they created their own merchandise line, and they worked on their digital media, and they did so much. And then they started doing those projects of giving back to the community with amazing stories of empowering female-owned businesses and giving back to unprivileged kind of communities in their surrounding area. And we found this story to be an inspiring story, and a story that actually represents many other stories, thousands of stories of small businesses that needed to adapt, needed to shift, needed to take advantages of opportunities that come in their way. And we thought it's an amazing story to show and kind of put it in the forefront of the Fiverr story. Because we really believe that those values are the backbones of the American story. And the 4 Season Total Landscaping couldn't be a better example for that. We're going to use, obviously, humor. It's going to be entertaining. But more than anything else, we wanted to provide hope and optimism after this really challenging year that we all kind of been through.
So, there's obviously lots of opportunity in the Super Bowl, all the eyeballs that are watching and the potential to really reach consumers that maybe, a smaller brand wouldn't have necessarily reached previously. But also, there's plenty of risks with all of those people watching you and on social media commenting right along with the spot. Anything can really go wrong, quite frankly, from today until game day. But Rebecca, could you talk a little bit about how you weigh the risk reward, and even especially this year when I think that there's so much divisiveness, and there's so much commentary around these commercials, and people closely watching them, that concern as well, how you navigate that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, a couple of things, and I really like the point of kind of the buckets of where some of the creative can go. I think for us, as we were thinking about launching this new idea, there is something just incredibly joyful about babies, right? And the fact that they bring hope, and there is a ton of divisiveness, but when you look at babies come from all different types of families, and thinking about how we can represent them as our brand and bring that to life, for us, it was really about kind of leaning into the tone that we want to create and who we are, and making sure that we're bringing kind of that joy of babyhood to life. So as we're thinking about the trade-offs, to your point up front, it's a big investment. It's the first time we're doing it. It makes me nervous. I think, somebody brought that up too. But when we really think about kind of the opportunity here, and to be able to really kind of say, hey, we want you to see us in a different way, and we're incredibly excited about what we're bringing, there's, honestly, no better way to do it. So that's where we really leaned in and felt like the risk was worth it in this case, obviously. And what I would say is the team is really working on how we can amplify all the messages that we have, and make sure that we're incredibly relevant, before the game, but then also obviously after the game as well.
You mentioned this idea that there are different types of babies from maybe different races, backgrounds, ethnicities will be featured in the commercial. I think that's an important point to discuss. Obviously, aside from COVID, we're also in the midst of a huge social justice movement. Can you talk a bit too about how you were thinking about being inclusive in not only the casting, but I think even more importantly, the storytelling, which beyond just like checking a box of do I have diverse people in this spot, I think is just as if not more so important.
Yes, definitely. I think, a couple of things. I'd say we've been on a journey for a while as Huggies. So actually we launched a product last year in 2019, or actually 2 years ago now at this point, in 2019. And we were the first brand to actually put dads and Black dads on our packaging. And it was one of those things where we did it because parents and dads and diverse dads are an important part of the parenting experience. It's not just about moms. And so we were doing it really reflecting on, hey, these are our consumers, and we want to best bring current parenthood to light. And in doing that, we made a first kind of by putting those dads on the package, but that wasn't really the intent. And so as we think about that, it's really our intent all along has been understanding that a beautiful diversity of babies that are born in this country, and how we represent them in everything that we do, from the entire process, and how we think about getting insights from our consumers and represent them. So to your point, it's not just about the casting. That was, an important part in making sure that we actually use real families when we shoot, because we found that that's the way that you get this incredibly authentic interaction between the baby and the parent, is when they are a real family. And so really kind of thinking through all of the different families and how we can represent them, but then also making sure from the creative process, our teams at our agencies are incredibly diverse across multiple different facets. Thinking about how we're partnering with who's producing our spots, and kind of all the different elements. And so it really has been something that's been important to us throughout the entire creative process, for the whole brand.
Janine, if I could
Yeah,
just
I was
jump in
going to
there.
just turn to you. Can you talk a little bit about the process, and especially when you're talking about this, inviting, people to look at this first civilian space message? What was the important there about speaking to everyone?
I just really appreciate what Rebecca just said, and I think it's so important in front of the camera and behind. And I think, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is an everyday, every minute table stakes now, right? And it's also, we're moving into a place, especially this year with this year's Super Bowl, where audiences are looking not just at what you're going to say with your advertising, but what your advertising says about you. And we're seeing marketers sort of take that on in lots of different ways. But regardless of where you end up, it always begins with consumer intelligence, with research, with advanced segmentation, with understanding what your brand is and what people expect of you, what value you can add to their lives, and then your ability to express the power and potential and relevance of your brand in an authentic way. And it's exciting to be on a panel with Huggies and with Fiber, because these are two brands, and there are others coming this weekend that have embraced that challenge with courage and boldness, done the work, and then now get to express the power and potential of their brands in a super authentic way that I think people are going to really respond to. Remember, it's about 100 million people who are going to see these ads. And then there's about 100 million more we want to see after that. And so your ability to really think through your media planning, your buying, and your optimization is really going to be critical to reach all the audiences that you're trying to activate.
Yeah, and maybe Gali, if you want to touch on anything there, if you have anything to add with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, diversity and inclusion considerations are things that you just cannot do in an ad, right? It's not, you need to, this should be part of your DNA and should be part of your brand any day of the year and not just on the Super Bowl ad. And I'll talk a bit about the Fiverr community. So the Fiverr community are freelancers and businesses that are coming from over 160 countries. Our purpose is to provide opportunities to anyone in the world to build their business, brand, or dreams. And if you think about it, our freelancers are coming from so many countries. And on our platform, they're judged only by their skills and nothing more. So not their background, not their life circumstances, not their gender. It's only their skill that matters. And I think this is something we're really proud of. So if you look at our past campaigns, all our campaigns are actually empowering and celebrating our community. We always use real sellers, real buyers, real freelancers, and real businesses stories in our campaigns, on our website, everywhere. Our recent campaign, It Starts Here campaign that was launched in September in TV, was actually spotlighting 3 different businesses, all very diverse, in Nashville. And so is this campaign, which is putting a female-owned business from Philadelphia in the center of the campaign, and so is the casting. But again, I don't think it's just a matter of one ad or one commercial. This is something you need to be committed to every day of the year with everything you do.
So I want to pivot a little bit, and I do want to talk a little bit about the challenges in creating the Super Bowl spot this year. Any year, on any given, Super Bowl year, there is challenges to creating these ads and pulling them off. But of course, this year, perhaps more than any other, there are the added, COVID protocols and making sure you're keeping everyone safe. Maybe Rebecca, you want to start about looking at like what you guys are doing to combat that, navigate it, any sort of hiccups along the way.
Yeah, I would say, thankfully, we didn't have any hiccups along the way because I think all of our partners did an amazing job of being really well prepared and having all the protocols. I think that's where, just being super clear, I would say from a Kimberly-Clark perspective, we clearly have protocols as we're thinking about how we're keeping our own employees safe as we continue to keep our manufacturing facilities open. And so we have ton of work already done to really help enable us to understand, what we deemed as being safe. We had our partners in that as well. Obviously didn't have my team traveling like we would normally do for shoots to really kind of limit all of that, but was just incredibly proud of all of the focus that the team put on safety and making sure we were able to do our shoot safely. And that's where, you know, a big part of our ad on Sunday is actually going to have user generated content for that very reason too. So we want to be able to highlight and show babies that are literally born on game day, and to do that in the right way. We said, all right, we're not going to be in hospitals because that's not the right and safe thing for us to do. So we're going to use, you know, families' content as they're in that moment, which I think will be incredibly impactful. And I'm super excited to see how it all comes together.
Ross, how did Known look to pull off a spot with the idea as big as a civilian space mission?
Well, look, I mean, like you said in the beginning, we turned 1 year old on Friday, and this is such an exciting moment for us because we're the first agency in a very long time to have done everything for our client in the Super Bowl, from brand strategy and positioning to creative development and production and post, all the way through to media planning, buying, and optimization. And that we're super proud of that because it's sort of breaking all the orthodoxies and the old ways of thinking about agencies. So when you think about that, and you think about how young we are as a business, we started 2020 with less than 200 people in our company. And we entered 2021 with over 300. Almost all of whom have never been in the same room as anybody else in our company. And so when you're trying to execute at this level, and this is the World Series, this is the Super Bowl, literally, there's no room for error, and excellence across all of our practices in the midst of a pandemic requires a hell of a lot of choreography and coordination. So what I'm most proud of is that our science teams, our PhD data scientists, of which there are a couple of dozen, our strategists, and then our world-class creatives were able to work together remotely, and in some cases in physical space, but distanced with protocols, to be able to pull something like this off in our first year on behalf of, there it is, the first ever all civilian mission to outer space that you could win a seat on. So please tune in, and you know, Janine, it could be you. We're just really excited about that and being able to pull it off.
Well, you know, look, the Super Bowl, though, is just one day. I'm sure for anyone investing in the Super Bowl, you're looking to extend it way beyond. You don't spend, you know, that much money to just go in for the day. How, golly, maybe is Fiverr looking to continue the momentum even after the Super Bowl ends?
Yeah, so definitely a very good question. The Super Bowl is one day, but you want to create the excitement way before it. You know, we just saw our teaser. And also to prolong it as much as possible. We're going to involve our community in that. We're going to have influencers joining the celebration, and we're going to use every single channel, from TV to digital to CRM and social, to make sure that the story goes way beyond just this one day. And again, we feel that it's not just a one-off story. This is the story of our company. This is the story of small business resilience, and entrepreneurship and agility. And this is a story we've been telling for many years, and we're going to keep on telling it. But definitely, we're going to make sure the excitement is just starting on Sunday, actually. This is where the celebration starts, really.
And Rebecca, what's the game plan for Huggies?
So very similar story, right? We've got our teaser that is just coming out today that's starting to get some excitement. We've got social channels and all of our earned and owned channels that are going to be activating. And we're actually going to be giving away 25,000 We Got You Baby kits to consumers after they are, see our ad on Sunday, and they can sign up and create that ongoing engagement and excitement about their babies that are either just arriving or on their way.
Ross, how do you measure the success of something like this?
Oh my God, that's what we're going to end on right there with me. Well, I thought you were going to ask me about how upset I am that avocados from Mexico are not advertising this year.
You can say that as well, but you're first got to get the hard question.
I mean, look, like we're trying to. This is a human first, and so the earned media from this announcement last night sets us up for incredible awareness and conversion. But really, in the midst of all of this, not to forget that shift4shop.com, which should be of interest to all the Fiverr freelancers who should set up their businesses there. Is a brand new business that's super exciting, and it's a really disruptive innovation in e-commerce. And so we'll be measuring how much attention that brand gets and how much conversion as we really build that ecosystem of entrepreneurs.
Great. You can also end by saying how sad you are to not see avocados in the Super Bowl.
I am very sad to miss the avocados, because that's like your funny cousin in every Super Bowl. There's like the avocado commercial, and they're not going to be there. And so next year, avocado people, if you are listening, like Known will do your ad for free, or just pay us in avocados, and we got it. We're done.
Guacamole all night.
Guacamole.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you to Ross, Gali, and Rebecca for joining me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to watching all of these spots on game day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Bye.
So, following the series of 2020, many Super Bowl advertisers, it seems, feel like it's their responsibility to entertain and uplift viewers who are watching on game day. Humor, of course, has always been a quintessential part of Super Bowl commercials, but I think this year's crop of ads are expected to have an even lighter tone. And next, we're going to take a look at the importance of humor in this year's advertising and how brands are balancing, some of these laugh out loud moments with the seriousness of the time. So I'm joined by Allison Miazga Bedrick, who is Senior Director of Marketing for the M&M's brand, Danielle Hawley, Global Executive Creative Director for Uber, and Ryan Oliver, Senior Director at Twitter Next. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So humor is expected to play a big part in the Super Bowl. And I'd love to just start, with Allison of why, for M&M's, which of course always has leaned into humor, lightheartedness is especially important this year.
Yeah, and I think you said it is, M&M's has always been about fun. And the way we treat Super Bowl is an extension of our campaign, and it's a kickoff of a new campaign for us. And we don't really take a departure during Super Bowl. So it's a great opportunity for us to sort of showcase humor and showcase fun in a way that brings our consumers together. And it's what we've done. It's what we've done even during the pandemic. We've launched a new brand called M&M's Fudge Brownie. We used humor to do that, and we will continue. So it's really about staying true to who we are. We obviously have beloved characters that consumers want to see. So it was really important for us to just be true to who we are from a brand perspective and continue that into Super Bowl.
In the pandemic, was there any concern that sort of sticking with this lightheartedness would backfire, or what was the challenge in sort of navigating humor amid all of the serious conversations that were happening and are continuing to happen?
Yeah, I think just having a sensitivity to and making sure that we're not tone deaf. So truly being aware of what's happening around us. And I think you'll see a bit of a departure for M&M's. We've always been about fun. Obviously, the world we live in, you're going to see us start pivoting to be a bit more of a purpose-driven brand. And in that, we really believe that fun has the opportunity to connect us and bring us together in a very different way. So I think you'll see that come through. But I think it's just making sure that we're aware of what's happening. We're aware of where people are and where our consumers are, and we're speaking to them, where they're at.
Gotcha. So Uber Eats will air its first Super Bowl commercial this year with a commercial that we saw a teaser in SNL this weekend. It reunites Wayne's World's Wayne and Garth. And amid the pandemic, though, Uber, has certainly taken a much more serious tone early on with messages of unity and togetherness. Danielle, why do you think humor was the right tone for this moment in time?
Well, as a Uber brand, Uber Eats, I think definitely lends itself to humor. I feel really lucky to be a part of a category that brings joy to people, especially during the pandemic. People just love it when they can tap a button and wings arrive on their doorstep. And I think the advertising has to reflect sort of that same joy and that same feeling. So, Uber Eats has a long history of humor, and bringing duos together in the Tonight I'll Be Eating campaign just felt like the perfect combination for Super Bowl.
Why these two? Why Wayne's World? Like, what was the idea for sort of doing bringing them back here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tide campaign has a history of bringing together duos that you never knew that you always needed, or frankly, never knew that you needed back in your life. And Wayne and Garth are, they're locals themselves. They're very loyal to Aurora, Illinois. And we felt like local access TV stars were just the perfect combination to be champions of local restaurants. And you'll see more about that soon.
Yeah, and I think we actually have a clip from SNL that we can air.
Great.
All right. Hey, we're back. 2020, man, that was a great year. Not. Yeah, it really sucks.
It sucked donkey.
Good one. We just wanted to say that we'll see you soon for the game, which for legal reasons cannot be named.
We'll see you on the big bowl.
The gigantic bowl.
Totally legal.
Yeah, completely legal.
All right, good teaser.
Yeah, I feel good about it.
So for both Uber Eats and for M&M's, it's not necessarily that you're shying away from conversations around the pandemic or the current environment, but you are certainly making light of them, or at least, injecting some humor into it. Can you talk about wanting to also make sure it is true to the time, not completely ignoring what's going on, keeping it lighthearted? Maybe Danielle, you want to start, and then Allison, you can.
Yeah, I think Allison mentioned it. There's a very big difference between, being lighthearted and being tone deaf. And the world is hurting. I think especially for us, we had to keep in mind restaurant owners and on-premise workers. And we knew that the Super Bowl stage came with a huge amount of eyeballs, but also a huge amount of responsibility. So we knew mobilizing the masses was something that we could definitely do, but we also had to make sure that we were underpinning our own support from Uber. And you'll see again more about that tomorrow when the ad launches.
We actually have also a clip, a teaser from M&M's that we could show.
Great.
Okay, everybody ready? 10, 9. Cake, anyone?
So a gender reveal party gone wrong, certainly. Allison, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I think what you see is there's a nod to maybe an opportunity to bring us together. So there's a nod to, I think, what everybody's been feeling in 2020. And obviously, candy is a great category for us to be in and can bring people together. So I think you're going to see the role that M&M's plays in bringing people together, maybe breaking down barriers, because, what we say is when you're laughing, you're listening. So I think you're definitely going to see an opportunity for us to acknowledge the times we're in, and then see the role that M&M's can play in bringing people together.
So in the run up to the game, Ryan, so far, what have you seen resonating with Twitter users? Like, what types of ads are they interested in seeing? What moments, and if whether humor or not, they're really wanting to watch?
Yeah, well, I think Allison and Danielle talked about it really well, about sort of the time that we're in and what people are yearning for and looking for in advertising around the Super Bowl. And certainly one of the things that we've seen is a shift towards keeping it pretty light. And a lot of brands have chosen to do a different form of gaming and sort of having fun leading up to the Super Bowl. And then Mountain Dew, I know, just released another teaser around their spot where they're going to try to make somebody's Super Bowl Sunday extremely memorable by a game of counting the number of their new flavor, the bottles of their new flavor in their spot, and giving away $1 million. So anything from that to Eli Manning potentially pouring a giant bottle of Frank's hot sauce on a famous creator and influencer. So there's a lot of different games that we'll see. And I think that, people are just looking to have fun during the game, and advertisers are certainly going to tap into that.
So you think that humor is really what Twitter users are looking at right now? Is that sort of the conversation that's resonating on the platform at this point?
It is. I mean, I think that, so many people turn to Twitter for humor, and we see that playing out every day. And, I know when the previous panel was talking about, or you had a guest from Fiverr, and I know that they are using everyone's favorite press conference location, Four Seasons Landscaping, which I got to be honest, over the past year, I don't think I've laughed as hard or consistently at replies to things all around Four Seasons landscaping. And so people are starting to recognize and tie together conversations from the year and what brands are going to use in their spots and sort of reliving some of those funny moments.
Gotcha. Allison, is it harder to get humor right at a time where there is, so much strife, divisiveness? Like, what checks were in place to ensure jokes land right or don't strike a nerve with viewers?
Yeah, I think it's all about inclusivity and making sure you have a diverse group of people looking at the work, because what we find is everybody brings their perspective. So I think it's just within Mars, within our agency BBDO, is just making sure you had a lot of eyes looking at it. And having the honest conversation about what's landing, what's not landing. So I think just being able to have that conversation, we've always done that in the past, but I think especially this year, you're going to see in our spot, which we reveal tomorrow, there's several different vignettes. And what you find is everybody has a favorite because of who they are as an individual. So I think it's just making sure that we've thought through that from everybody's perspective and see how the jokes land.
I think if you look back over like 10 years ago and kind of pinpoint at that time what were some of the funniest or deemed the funniest commercials at the time, I feel like a lot of them you might not even be able to air today, or there would be a lot of like backlash if you did. Danielle, could you talk about how maybe humor has evolved? Like, what kind of humor would you think resonates best with this kind of audience in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. It's certainly not an easy one to answer, especially when you look back through the vault and go back in the way back time machine and see all those Super Bowl spots that just wouldn't necessarily resonate right now. I personally don't think that humor has to be at the expense of anyone. So, when we looked at Wayne and Garth, for example, a lot of their humor was very sophomoric, but it was also very classic and nostalgic. And nostalgia, I think, and humor and nostalgia is something good to pull on, especially as people are yearning for better times and looking back to kind of relive moments that they know we're going to experience again.
Ryan, let's talk a little bit more about the ways brands, you see them using social media during the game and in the run up to. Over the last few years, we've actually seen brands poke fun at one another. So like going on and making fun of each other's Super Bowl commercials and having conversations almost human-like with each other. What are you seeing in terms of those? How are you advising brands to communicate even amongst each other during the game?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the things that makes the Super Bowl so awesome is not only is everybody watching the same thing, but it's also brands themselves watching and finding ways to interact. And they've found such clever and interesting and fun ways to do that. You made a comment too that some of them are poking fun at each other, sometimes making some not so flattering commentary on TV spots or what people are doing or what brands are doing on social channels. And I think that this year, is probably not the year to use some of those jabs, and even if they're tongue in cheek, just it's not the right time for people to be taking shots at each other, and that certainly is the case with brands. So I think what we see that works really well, and what we're talking with brands about is recognize a great ad, and even if it's a competitor or another brand, just recognizing it and then finding a clever way to incorporate your brand into it. And I know in the previous panel, you ended talking about avocados from Mexico, which reminded me of, I don't think there's another day where avocados from Mexico could get away with incorporating their product into an Amazon Alexa ad or any of the others that they do so well, but it really works. So it's really just an opportunity to have fun. And I think this year more than ever is the time to do that versus trying to poke at each other.
Allison, Danielle, how are you both extending the jokes beyond just the game and the spot itself? Allison, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I mean, I think it started already, right, with people releasing teasers and, releasing their celebrities. We're obviously releasing our spot tomorrow, but we're doing it for the first time ever on Zoom. We're going to be the first brand to reveal its spot on Zoom. So again, that's sort of another bite at the apple. The other thing we talk a lot about is making sure that we have brand acts, not just brand ads. And I think you heard a lot of people talk about that, where, we will use our social media channels to really enable sharing and gifting of M&Ms through couponing or through a partnership that we have with another instant delivery service, is to making sure that we're putting M&Ms sort of in the hands of people, as well as ensuring that they're enjoying the content. So it's typically it kicks off. It's at least a 4-week sort of phased approach, and then for us it becomes our campaign that we use all year.
Danielle, what will Uber be looking to do, whether on social or elsewhere, to extend the jokes?
Yeah, we definitely took advantage of sort of the pre, during, and post Super Bowl nature of the campaign. And it is just an extension of the Tonight I'll Be Eating campaign with a bit of a spin. I think, as you'll see tomorrow. And as Allison said, it is a moment to bring people together. I think that the Super Bowl stage certainly comes with those eyeballs that we all love and mention, but again, also that sense of responsibility to understand how the world is living today. So I think what you'll see out of our social media and out of all of our channels is that we are doing our best to certainly drive demand. That's an easy thing, rallying the masses, and we can make it a little sweeter for them to do that. But also, again, I echo Allison in those acts. We say actions, not ads, and that had to be a huge part of this particular moment. And you'll see, I think, a full channel view. This is the first time we've ever used every single marketing surface that Uber has within the app. So owned channels became a really big part of our campaign this year, as well as our restaurant partners, because it is that symbiotic relationship, and we'll know if we've succeeded if we help them through this season.
What do war rooms look like on game night in COVID time? How are you sort of preparing and getting that ready, with all of the COVID protocols in place?
Well, they look like this.
I was going to say, just like this.
So are you
looking at a screen?
Are you going to be Zooming all night with your colleagues and a team who I'm sure is manning social and all of that?
Yes.
Yes, on one screen, and then I'll have my family and my COVID bubble here to watch the spot as well too. So
lots of screens going.
Lots of screens, lots of multitasking.
Another, important part of Super Bowl commercials historically are celebrities. And I think this year in particular, too, we're seeing even more celebrity action and A-listers come aboard. Maybe it's a part of, the pandemic lockdowns and shutdowns of some productions with more talent being available. But we are seeing some big names in commercials. Can you both talk about, the importance of celebrities and what value they really bring to the commercials, especially this year? Danielle, I know you mentioned the nostalgia element, but anything else that, a celebrity appearance does to an in-game spot?
Well, certainly, they lend their own reach. And in a lot of ways, we consider celebrities as media channels too, not just as talent in the spots. And that can be a huge, I think, lever to pull in making sure that your message resonates, and your message resonates with an audience that's already primed because they already love the said celebrity that you're bringing apart into the campaign. I think with Mike and Dana, it was just once they understood the message behind this campaign specifically, I don't think that they could help but want to be involved. I certainly think that, yes, celebrities have more time on their hands, but they're also very much willing to lend either their social channels or their identity or their characters to help where they can. And we were very pleased that they felt so strongly about the message behind our spot.
And also, I think Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek will be making a cameo for M&M's. Can you talk about that and why it was important in these different vignettes to have a celebrity cameo in there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, to the point made earlier, when you find a celebrity that really fits with your brand, and that's exactly what happened. Dan read the script and he was on board from day one. And who he is, it's funny, I've worked on a variety of Super Bowl campaigns, and we've released a teaser, we've released Dan Levy, and the universal response I'm getting is, I love him. And so, what he stands for, he's just so self-aware, so inclusive. He's so hot right now. And when you say his name, people smile, and that's exactly what we want when people think of M&M. So it was really just a great fit for the brand, just because of who he is and what he stands for.
Brian, can you talk a little bit about how Twitter is advising brands at this point to avoid, any missteps or issues on Super Bowl Sunday?
Sure. First, I'd love to say, hopefully we'll see maybe a Dan Levy or a Dana Carvey, Mike Myers takeover on their Twitter handles, because that would be amazing. I think the first thing that we're advising brands, first, brands are so sophisticated, and I think when it comes to social, they really have the hang of the do's and don'ts, and so it's much different than it was, say, 5 years ago. But
do you think do you think the challenges have changed?
Certainly they have. I mean, there's always room for missteps. There's always room for sort of a tone that is off. And so the first thing that we would advise is knowing your brand. And it's not necessarily about looking at what others are doing and copying that, but it's understanding what your brand's unique role is in people's lives. And finding a way this year, as we're talking about on this panel, is finding a way to inject the right amount of humor at the right time. It can also be a time to lead by example, depending on what the message is that you're trying to send. So it's just knowing what your brand is. Allison talked so well about that in M&M's and being true to who they are. And I think that that's something that we're advising every brand that we talk to. And then the second, and this goes to those potential missteps, is keeping very up to date with what's happening. Things can change drastically between today and Sunday evening. It can change drastically between Saturday and Sunday, and even Sunday morning to game time. So sort of understanding what's going on in the world around us that's moving so quickly, and making adjustments if necessary, which, we've seen a lot in the past, and that could certainly happen again this year.
Ryan brings up a great point about how quickly things can change, or anything can really happen from today until Super Bowl Sunday. Obviously, the spots are created, but how do you prepare, or what are the contingencies in place, especially this year? Because I think over the last year or 2 years, that's especially true with the pandemic and other issues that, anything could possibly change, making maybe a joke hit the wrong way. What are the contingency plans for things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's contingency plans in the planning. So what happens if Super Bowl doesn't happen on the day of? So working with our media partners, we had a 3-day shoot, and it was the middle of COVID, and we actually had to push one of the days out as a result. And then I think it's also, when we were going to release some of our teasers, with the inauguration, we ended up pushing that out as well. So I think it's just making sure that you're aware of what else is happening around you. We also have a lot of, I'll say, footage that didn't make the spot, that should we need to, adjust at a certain point, we can, knowing that, while the spot kicks off on Super Bowl, there could be other iterations of it. So I think it's just making sure that you're proactively planning and have options should something arise.
Danielle, how about for Uber?
Yeah, that's exactly, I echo Allison's sentiments exactly. I think that it's having things locked and loaded and ready in case, not that you can always plan for every moment that might happen, but being prepared and sort of doing that worst case scenario kind of planning is really important. But I think that this year specifically, it was really about how do we produce this campaign in the safest possible way. And I know that there have been lots of changes last minute. And again, hats off to the talent, hats off to the production agencies, hats off to the directors, because I know that there's been a lot of brands who have had to do things like we did, like move our shoot and take very, very, extreme precautions to make sure that we were keeping everyone safe through the process. And that planning, I think, was paramount this year.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. Super Bowl commercials, always difficult and a challenge to pull off on a good year. This year, with all the COVID protocols, like Danielle, you mentioned, I'm assuming that was infinitely harder. Can you talk about maybe the different ways, and Danielle, maybe you could talk a little bit more about the ways that maybe you had to pivot, change course, direction, change an idea, or however else you navigated that? Yeah,
I'm really lucky that Uber is kind of, we are nothing if not good at pivoting. So internally, that was rather a muscle that was already built in, but it was really about making sure that we had partnerships with our agency and partnership with our production companies that could do the same. We listen to SAG guidelines, of course, when it comes to production, but we also have our own measure for what we're comfortable with doing and how we want to make sure that safety is of paramount proportion. So we actually decided to move the shoot from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. We were able to I think, up the level of safety by who we limited coming to set. We also all stayed in the same hotel, so nobody was going home at night. Everybody was sort of staying in the same bubble, the proverbial bubble, if you will, and testing with lead times and making sure that we were allowing for any incubation period to make sure that those tests were accurate and that we could feel safe with our masks and our face shields and all the necessary precautions on set, we could feel as safe as possible to get the best performance. I mean, certainly it's safety first, performance second, but there's a lot at stake here, and it was definitely more challenging than it has been in past years.
Allison, how did M&M's navigate this?
Yeah, I think very similarly. The shoot was frankly extended. I think if it wasn't COVID, it would probably have been a shorter shoot, but obviously things have to be put in place. We actually had to pivot. Our last day of the shoot had to change as well, because I think to the point that was just made, it was safety first. We shot in LA sort of before the shutdown in December. We were home, so it was a sort of a virtual village. We did it all via Zoom. So clearly we had folks from our agency and the production company were there with the talent, but then many of us were connected via Zoom, having conversations. So it's amazing what you can accomplish if you put the right things into place, and it's exactly what we did.
And you spoke a little bit earlier, Allison, and I think Danielle mentioned it as well, about inclusivity and how you're thinking about that. Aside from obviously COVID, this year was huge for social justice movement. And how were you thinking about that in your planning and creation of these spots? While they don't have necessarily a social justice message, how important was it to put inclusivity as top of mind in the process?
Yeah, I think it's paramount, not only in obviously the Super Bowl work, but everything that we do at Mars Wrigley, because it comes from who we are as a company. So obviously very important. And again, I think it just starts with the conversation. Not being afraid to discuss those topics and having the right people at the table who are a diverse group of individuals. The other thing that we did, and when you see the spot, you'll realize there's interactions between people, and our spot is about bringing people together. So therefore, there may be some sort of tensions that you have to bring people together. And so we were very cognizant of who we're bringing together and what message that is saying, and we wanted to just get it right. So again, communication. Whereas I think in the past, sometimes you just assume it's going to be okay. And I think now you're willing to point things out to say, is this working? Is it not? And you adjust. So I think it was very refreshing to ensure that everybody had a voice at the table.
Yeah, and inclusivity, of course, is just more than just casting. It's the storylines and the accurate representation. Allison or Danielle, do you want to talk about what you were thinking about as it relates to that?
Well, I certainly think that part of the conversation is the diversity behind the camera as it relates to our directors, our agency partners, and the crew. I think growing up a female creative director in a very male-dominated, non-diverse world, it's always the top of mind for me. I was fortunate enough to work on launching a line of adaptive clothing for Tommy Hilfiger last year, and I think incorporating people with disabilities is certainly all part of that mix too. So if nothing else, it is top of mind for me and certainly for Uber. And the Tonight I'll Be Eating campaign is all about bringing together duos that you wouldn't expect. And that takes thinking about nostalgia, thinking about modernity. It takes thinking about, representation from all sides of the equation, I think both in front of the camera, but also behind. And you'll see some surprises in this campaign, as well as some of the celebrities that we have on tap to come in the Tonight I'll Be Eating series.
Ryan, how do you think the social justice movement will be a part of, or will it be a part of, you think, the conversation on Twitter during the Super Bowl this year? Do you think that Twitter users will be looking at the commercials through that lens, if at all?
I do. I think there will be plenty of people who I think are looking for more levity and kind of want to break from that, and certainly will join in on conversations as they see fit. And then there are others who understandably will be looking at all of the ads through that lens and almost critiquing some of them as a result of that. So I think the brands that are addressing some of the social injustice and some of the movements that we've seen should be prepared for those conversations and what people and the comments that people are making as a result. So, we've seen people will interject those comments even when it's not intended to be the message that a brand is making. So I think that it's something to be prepared for and something that we should certainly see on Sunday.
So I can't let you guys leave without asking, just to throw out there, what you find as the funniest Super Bowl commercial, not your own, What is your favorite, funniest commercial? Ryan, do you wanna start?
Oh, there are a lot. I would say historically, I think one that is really catchy was the Budweiser "What's Up" ad, which has sort of stood the test of time for me, and I really loved it.
Danielle?
Yeah, I mean, this is in the Wayback Time Machine, and I could be partial because I did once work on the brand, though not on this spot. But that I'm also Italian, so maybe that has something to do with it. But the Audi Godfather spot to me was certainly one of the funniest in history.
And Allison?
Yeah, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't give a nod to my sister brand at Mars, the Betty White, Snickers ad. To me, it really kicked it off from Mars to sort of get into the Super Bowl. So to me, that's my favorite. I do think when I look outside of the category, I do look at the work from Budweiser, the work from Frito-Lay, and I look forward to those ads every year.
No puppy monkey baby. Well, thank you so much all for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll be watching all those commercials on game day.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So up next, we have a word from one of our sponsors, Shutterstock. We'll be right back after this.
Thank you, Janine. Hi there, everyone. My name is Josh Golden. I'm the president and publisher for AdAge. And today we're going to discuss the rise of augmented reality and virtual reality in use and technology and entertainment. As we just heard, we're all living in a different world and to the one we lived in last year. And the quest for entertainment during quarantine, as we just saw in our last panel, has everyone looking for joy and perhaps a moment of respite. To that end, during last year, we witnessed the rise in augmented reality with 44 million people using it once per month for an escape in 2020. Maybe AR and VR is another answer to every audience looking for that moment of release. To speak about this is joining me is Stan Pavlovsky, who's the CEO of Shutterstock. Stan, welcome to the conversation today. How are you? Oh, Stan, I can't hear you. Oh well, let's see. Stan, maybe if you unplug your speakers from the microphone, we can try that. Just unplug it from your computer. Let's see if that works. I can't stand. Oh boy.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Now I got it. Oh, that's awesome. Woo! Saved my life, Stan.
Wow, the power of technology. And by the way, that was extremely good form by you. Very quick. Unplug and plug it back in. So that was it.
You know what? It's the standard move for anybody who has anything to do with technology. Just try, turn it off and turn it on. Stan, let's get it rolling. Thank God. Whew, sweating a little bit, but I'm gonna move on. Thank you so much for joining me for the chat today. I'm super excited to chat with you about this. I don't know if you caught a little bit of the end of that, but the panel we were just talking about was humor during the Super Bowl. Obviously, people are desperate for a moment of relaxation and joy in this year that's been quite challenging. Now, obviously, with Shutterstock, it's for me, I and we're talking about augmented reality in particular. When I think Shutterstock, I don't necessarily think AR and VR. I think of great video or great even still pictures. But this is obviously a new area for you. Tell me how you got into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because the interest in 3D has been around for some time, and in fact, at Shutterstock, it's a top 5 search category for us. So this is something we've been monitoring, for some time. And last week we announced the acquisition of TurboSquid, which is the largest 3D content and models marketplace. So now we're squarely in the 3D category. And so we think the time is right. Like you mentioned, 44 million people using Snap and other social media platforms to be engaged and to be immersed in a very different experience. And we think this is a great time. And there's also, when you think about it, there's, like you said, there's humor, there's leisure, but there's also a lot of practical applications. You've got trying on clothes or trying on makeup, attending concerts, remodeling your home. There's so many applications of 3D, and we're very excited that we can help bring this technology and this immersive content type to so many more consumers with this acquisition.
Yeah, it seems like it's such a logical evolution, knowing that we had a conversation with Jamie a couple weeks ago during our CMO conference, and he talked a lot about how brands have shifted so dramatically their production solutions to use Shutterstock globally to have their content be created. But now with AR and VR, it's almost making it overwhelmingly easier for agencies and brands to not necessarily need to go do that kind of production. I'm curious, have you thinking about the growth of the AR and VR set, it's almost like, I guess you're lowering the barrier of entry, I'm guessing. Is that what your thought is for Shutterstock, of why it's that growth area is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. This fits so nicely within our marketplace. We definitely are kind of an early innovator in democratizing content and making it more accessible to a wider audience. This will make 3D much more accessible to both our community of creators, but also the marketers across, gaming, e-commerce, etc. So it doesn't really matter if it's a small business that wants to showcase a new product or a large, gaming company that's looking for a 3D dragon. Doesn't matter. We'll have the perfect asset.
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, this past year, you couldn't go into a store, but you could go to Pinterest and try on, different makeup for, that is incredibly easy and accurate.
Did you try makeup on, Stan?
What's that?
Did you try makeup on? Were you doing clothing?
I didn't, but I'm I'm so curious about this technology. Okay, I know this is going to be hard for you to believe. 15 years ago, I was with a startup called drugstore.com, okay? And we were looking at try-on technologies.
Oh my.
And at that time, you had to take a photo. Then you had to upload the photo. You had to make sure that the product fit the image. Now you're walking around with a mobile device that can do all this, has the depth perception, has the accuracy is just amazing. You've got companies, training employees during this time in a completely virtual environment. You can see a store layout long before you ever walk into it. So it really is amazing.
That's fascinating.
Where the tech is going.
It's fascinating. I want to talk about the music industry in particular. I know my children I've been suffering without, live performance for a while. And it seems like my kids on both Fortnite and Snapchat and TikTok, they're seeing live performances constantly. There's something you have with Snapchat. I mean, basically it's enabling people to perform virtually and the brands to perform and have visibility in these spaces that they didn't have it before. Is this something you have had exposure to as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about some of the things that have happened, right? Just recently. I mean, you've got The Weeknd, who's coincidentally the halftime performer at the Super Bowl, did an incredible partnership with TikTok, right? It was kind of this really cool cross reality type of concert where you had all sorts of avatars and 3D objects kind of flying around to his music. And at the same time, you've got people's comments are floating around about, live about what's happening at the concert, and they're interacting with each other. I mean, you can't do that anywhere else. Some other cool examples that I just, I go back to is even pre-COVID. You had, I don't know if you remember this, U2 and Bono. They did a concert that leveraged augmented reality. It was their Experience and Innocence tour, and Bono had like his alter ego. And you looked at it on your phone, and he was larger than life, politician. It was just amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Did we have something? I think we had an image of something on Snapchat that you suggested Look, oh, here's you. This is you enjoying something. What was it? What?
Yes, this is me representing Josh, representing the famous 12th man from the Seahawks. And just so you know, I am a big Snap filter fan, so I will be sending you multiple images after this, just so you can give me feedback.
I'll look forward to that.
I need that positive reinforcement. Okay.
I'll look forward to that. So I'm curious now with Shutter having the capacity to basically offer to brands the ability to do AR and VR. Do you see more brands effectively picking up this mantle and being empowered to do things either in stadium or something that allows them to sort of engage in the game, just like you showed there with Snapchat?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to say something extremely impactful for
okay, I'm ready. I'm totally ready.
It's going to be mind blowing. Okay, so the more that consumers engage with ads, the better they perform. I know this is, mind-boggling and incredibly insightful, but in all seriousness, when you look at augmented reality or you look at 3D, just think about if you're on a website that has a VR enabled product image, people are 80% likely to go into or activate that content. So when I think about the Super Bowl and what you can do and live events and what you can do and the level of engagement that you can have and that marketers can have, both for people who are live at the event and for people who are not at the event but watching live, the opportunities are really incredible to drive engagement, to drive brand awareness. I definitely think that this is going to be a new opportunity and a high growth area for marketers.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider the business challenges with it, just because it would help me to know this as a previous brand marketer. Who owns the 3D assets when they use it, and are they reusable in other platforms that aren't AR and VR?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you come to Shutterstock or our partner brand TurboSquid, most of the content is actually owned by the creatives and the contributors. And we are a marketplace that allows consumers and marketers to license that content for all sorts of uses because content is protected. And so it allows the creators to make a great living and gives them a new revenue stream to work with a company that has scale like Shutterstock. But it gives marketers the opportunity to use models across all platforms. And today you can easily use 3D on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, and so I'm just so excited by the possibilities, and I think we're going to be the platform that helps to democratize 3D.
It seems so. I don't want to diminish the investment, but it seems such like a logical progression for Shutterstock, starting with pictures, going into video, now having drones, and now what my conversation with Jamie going into international production that effectively allows you not to have to do anything, and now AR and VR. I want to throw this question in here, Stan. What area is next for you? I know you're the CEO, so maybe you can't reveal this, but it just seems like you're expanding into so many areas of production that makes it so much easier for brands to use it.
Absolutely. Well, you're right. I mean, with our studios, with Shutterstock Studios, we'll definitely expand our capabilities and make 3D content creation and storytelling available almost immediately. But another example of just some innovation for us, we sort of acquired a company that is focused on the AI creation of music this past November. So we are working on making music clips and other types of content available for creators that spark innovation, that spark that creative juice. And really what we're about is to help marketers make intelligent decisions about creatives, which is the hardest part of the the entire workflow is what content should I use to engage my audiences? And what we want to do is make it much more simple and much more intelligent, backed by data. So you're going to see a lot of innovation from us around data-enabled content and recommendations that are based on what actually works on every one of the platforms.
Oh my God, Stan, that sounds so exciting. Knowing that we're talking about the Super Bowl, I want to ask you, is there your favorite Super Bowl spot you want to mention, or perhaps a favorite Super Bowl memory that you think might be interesting for our audience to hear about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay,
you mentioned you already outed yourself. You're a Seahawks fan, so
yeah, I'm a Seahawks fan, and this is an easy one. Okay, so the good news is, in my lifetime, I got to go to a Super Bowl where the Seahawks played and won. So this was in 2014. It was here in New York, and the day before the Super Bowl, we were in Manhattan for the fan experience, which was a lot of fun. So we start going back to our hotel, and like a good New Yorker, zigzagging back to our
you want to make sure you're
hotel.
efficient. Go on the walk.
Yes,
go on the walk.
We're looking for the most efficient way to get back.
Totally.
And just pure coincidence, we walk by a restaurant, and who is standing out there? Two Seahawks legends. Oh, yes, you have a photo of this.
There we go. There we go. You did.
Steve Largent and Jim Zorn, who are some of two of the most famous Seahawks. One's a wide receiver, one's a quarterback. So we took a picture with them, and definitely one of my fondest memories. And it was serendipity, and I knew because that happened that the Hawks were going to win, and they did.
That was the signal. If I can get a picture, definitely winning. That is great.
That's right.
Stan. That's a terrific, very personal memory. That's awesome. Stan, I want to thank you, CEO of Shutterstock, Stan Pavlovsky, for joining me today. What a great conversation. What a wonderful insight. Thank you so much for your time, Stan.
Thanks, Josh. Great to be with you.
Really enjoyed it. All right, next up, Janine Poggi, our senior editor at Age, is coming back to discuss diversity and inclusion. Hello, Janine. How are you?
Thank you, Josh. I'm getting through the week. It's Tuesday, I think. So
it is Tuesday, but it's very snowy outside, so don't go out unless you've shoveled.
I just turned to the window in this 2-second break here, and it's starting to snow again. So
you know what? Just breathe through it. Just breathe to be fine. Thank you, Janine. Go take it away.
So, during the course of this conversation today and in previous panels this afternoon, we touched upon how diversity and inclusion will certainly be an important part to this year's game. And it'll be much more of an important factor than ever before. Super Bowl advertisers will certainly be judged by inclusivity, but this does not mean that every brand has to necessarily make a social justice statement. It isn't also, though, as simple as just featuring a diverse cast either. So next up, we're going to have a conversation about what the ad world needs to do to be truly inclusive in its messaging. And I am joined today by Carlos Santiago, who is the co-founder of AIM, Ricardo Marquez, the global head of Michelob Ultra, and Aaron Walton, CEO and founder of Walton Isaacson. Hello.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you all today.
Great to be here.
Great to be here.
And I'm especially happy to be having this conversation. I think it is an important one, not just for Super Bowl, for the entire, ad world to be paying attention to. But I do think for the Super Bowl in particular, it's the start of the year. It's the start of 2021. It is, quite frankly, the biggest stage. So I think in particular for brands making a statement this year, thinking about inclusivity will be especially important. And while I do want to spend most of the conversation looking forward, I do want to take a minute to just set the table on where we are as it relates to inclusivity in Super Bowl ads. And I know that AIM has had some data around the subject. So Carlos, maybe you can provide us a little bit of background and data on how inclusive Super Bowl ads were in 2022, and if there were any in particular that did things really well.
Yes, in 2020, we found that there was a lot of inclusivity in terms of casting at first sight. It looks like we have the same trend for 2021. About 50% of all those casted in commercials in 2020 were of multicultural background. However, once we start peeling the onion, we see that that is only for some segments and not others. Specifically, it's interesting when we noticed last year with Shakira and J-Lo in the halftime show, the Hispanic viewers actually exceeded the traditionally high African American viewership for the first time. Yet, from an inclusivity perspective, the ads were 50% white non-Hispanic, 29% African American, and only 11% Hispanic. So there's a lot of room there. There's also a lot of opportunity in increasing the LGBTQ and people with disabilities in those ads.
But it's more than just casting, certainly. It's not just taking people of diverse backgrounds and putting them in a Super Bowl spot to check a box. Aaron, could you talk a little bit about how brands should be thinking beyond just who they're featuring in their commercials?
Right, absolutely. And I will tell you, casting is only one element to diversity and inclusion. I actually think that it really starts well before we even see an ad, well before we even, log on to, YouTube to see the content. It really has to start early on in the insights and in the research that we are doing in order to make sure that we are tapping into all of the stories of these amazing Black and brown people, these amazing LGBTQ and people with disabilities, to make sure that we're telling their stories in their way, in a way that sometimes might seem really narrow and focused. But the reality is sometimes those narrow focused stories are the ones that garner the larger audience, that have some universal connection to other segments. So I actually think we need to continue to amplify the need for insights and make sure that we've got the data that is required. And by the way, we have the data. It's not that we don't have the data. It's about using it and putting it to practical use and having the courage to step outside and understand that this is not just about, by the way, I'm not trying to dissuade people from putting diverse actors in commercials, but that can't be the answer. It has to start well before that. And it has to start in terms of making sure that we're putting the right investments into understanding those insights.
And we've spoken previously, and you mentioned, I think it was a phrase like the culture, putting the culture in versus the casting. And I really liked that. I think it resonated in that, like, this is not just about like a storyline that anyone could be thrown into, but really having the nuances of featuring different ethnicities and what's important and relevant to the community.
It's certainly more than ethnicity. I mean, ethnicity is part of it, but it really is understanding the culture and understanding how Carlos, as a Latino, might see the world and interact in the world differently than I am as a Black gay man. And so we have to make sure we understand the cultural nuances that are going to resonate with the viewers.
Carlos, for the brands that did seem to score well as it relates to inclusivity last year, what are the traits or things that they did do well?
Yes, it's overall, the Super Bowl ads did not fare as well in cultural relevance as opposed to non-Super Bowl ads. If you think about the 4 quartiles of cultural relevance scores, white non-Hispanics scored Super Bowl ads last year almost perfectly equally. 25% at the top, 22nd quartile, third, and the bottom quartile, no cultural relevance.
I think we can have a breakdown of that too, if we want to throw it up.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
But when on the right-hand side, you see that African Americans only score a handful of ads in the very, very top deep green quartile on the first column. In Hispanics, almost no ad. I think that was only 1 ad. And in the second quartile, African Americans have almost 45% of ads, but Hispanics only 22%. And if you look at that second column, very importantly, the bottom deep red, almost 1 in 3 ads were rated at the bottom quartile by Hispanics. So even though they are the new viewers of the Super Bowl, they still don't feel reflected. And when they are being reflected, it is because, as Aaron mentioned, the storylines are more accurately depicting their reality. And obviously that increases affinity and that increases purchase intent. And that's why we are doing this, because it's good for society, but it's also good for growth.
You mentioned something about Super Bowl ads versus non-Super Bowl ads. Were non-Super Bowl ads in your study higher rated in terms of cultural insights versus Super Bowl ads? Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
Much more, much higher for every single segment. So it's consistent.
Yeah, why do you think that? I mean, from anyone here, like, why do you think that is? That because we are even starting to see that this year, we're getting hints of that brands who have made important strides this year, that have done some really interesting work, their Super Bowl ads may not be reflecting that just yet. And I'm wondering what the disconnect is between any other time of the year and the Super Bowl, to anyone who wants to jump in, if any insight on that.
Ricardo, I'm not sure if you've seen this also internally, but I think that a lot has to do with the genre of the entertainment value of Super Bowl ads, especially the use of humor. And perhaps that creates a bigger challenge to be culturally relevant to ad creators. But
it is something that you're seeing that disconnect between other ads and Super Bowl ads. That's interesting. Ricardo, Michelob Ultra has 2 spots in the game this year. Can you talk about your creative process and how you are thinking about inclusivity in, all of the elements, the creation process, the casting, the storytelling, who's working behind the camera?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could not be more excited about this year's Super Bowl, both with the spot that we just released, Happy, for Michelob Ultra, and what we're going to release tomorrow, pre-release tomorrow, for Michelob Ultra Organic Seltzer. And I think that the point that Aaron has made, casting and diversity is as important, thinking about who's in front of the camera, but also who's behind the camera, starting with the director, but then going all the way back to our agency, the production crew, our agency partners, our own team sitting at our own office. It is important that that's a key part of everything that we do. And to the point of these 2 beautiful spots, starting with Happy, I mean, the stories of these world-class athletes and showing how enjoyment is part of their lives and their path to winning was something that we were really excited about, by no other than Spike Lee. I mean, beautiful piece of film, but then a message that we also feel is necessary right now.
We do have that spot, so let's show it. We could talk a little bit more about it. Do we have it? Maybe we don't have it. All right.
What if we were wrong this whole time? Wrong in thinking that joy happens only at the end. After the sacrifice. After the commitment. After the win. What if happiness has always been there, fueling the run toward greatness? It's not a distraction, but instead something more vital. What if joy is the whole game, not just the end game? So ask yourself, are you happy because you win? Or do you win because you're happy?
Can I kick it? Can I kick it? Can I kick it?
So can you talk a little bit about the creation of that spot, what you were thinking, as you put it together, and sort of the message that you're looking to put out there?
Absolutely. I mean, I have to take us all the way back to last year. We've been working for the last few months on this particular campaign. It's a campaign that extends throughout the year, starting with Super Bowl. And the first thing we did was to indeed fact check ourselves around this notion that joy is key to winning, right? We're all working very hard. We're all focused on everything that we're doing that is important for our jobs or to stay fit. But at the same time, we also believe that joy is a key part of that equation. Balance is indeed very important. So we went and we spoke with a range of amazing athletes, world-class athletes, the likes of Serena Williams, Anthony Davis, Brooks Koepka. And the constant theme that we've heard is that, in fact, while people see these amazing athletes as, almost performance machines, robots that spend 24/7, of their time in the gym, what we've heard is that, in fact, taking time to relax, spend time with friends and family, sometimes over a beer, kicking back, re-energizing, recharging, was indeed a key part of what kept them in the game and allowed them to keep winning. So, it is not a marketing story or a Michelob story. It is indeed a real story that is true to the lives of these amazing athletes.
And how did you look to make sure that that was an inclusive story, that could resonate with, anyone watching it?
The notion behind it is indeed intrinsically human. The idea that balance leads to and joy leads to winning. But then we worked very closely with each one of these amazing athletes to depict situations that were authentic for them in the way they live their lives and in the way they choose to enjoy. So, for instance, Serena loves to sing. She loves karaoke, right? So that was one of the things that we built for her, for this story, for her particular scene. So all of this was a part of a co-creation, a project, and not at all, here's a script that we're going to shoot and this is it, and we don't want your input. It was quite the opposite. And actually, fun fact, when you look at all of the different scenes in the spot, we have no actors, right? So all of the people that you see next to Serena, Brooks, Peyton, it's all friends or family, right? So that's why you were able to get these genuine reactions, the genuine emotion around happiness and joy.
It seems like authenticity is the key word there, if I'm taking away anything from that. But Aaron, you and your agency worked on the Black Panther ad for Lexus. That was in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk about some of the lessons learned from that and the ways in which you feel like you learn sort of a case study in how you truly be inclusive in a commercial like that?
Sure. So it was really interesting because I think one of the big lessons for me and anyone watching who's ever done a tie-in with a studio understands that, one of the challenges you have is just trying to align the timing. And so here we had this movie, and to Marvel's credit, and I think a lesson that I think all of us could learn, and to Lexus's credit, they didn't treat this as a small Black film. They treated this with the same level of support and energy and passion that they would any other film in the Marvel franchise. And that required, going outside of the traditional ways in which we see smaller, honestly, oftentimes smaller Black and brown films targeted. And I think the lesson that we should all come away from is that Black actors, Black directors can open a movie wide, and it can make a huge difference to the bottom line. When you look at the Black Panther and you look at the results, it was the #1 superhero movie of all time, the #1 box office for 5 consecutive years. From Lexus' perspective, we saw tying into this part of Black excellence and really kind of connecting our brand with that franchise. We saw a huge lift in LS 500 sales, and we saw a huge lift in searches. It was quite amazing to see how that movie and that tie-in really translated across segments. And so the lesson for, I think, all of us is don't prejudge, don't assume that if you've got a Black director, a Black cast, that it's only going to appeal to a young Black audience. There's upside for the brand across all segments, and that's what we saw. And that's kind of what Carlos was talking about with Super Bowl, with J-Lo and with Shakira. We brought in new people to experience the brand in new, unique ways.
Carlos, anything that you've noticed about the brands that have really missed the mark in recent years? Kind of what went wrong, or what are the things that they didn't do, either if it was a mistake or they just simply didn't do, that led to like lower scores?
Yes, I think some of them were mentioned by Ricardo. You know, the fact that there is a universal theme is a great start, and having casting, fantastic, and having celebrities, even better. But it is the richness of that authenticity, of the roles in which they play in the commercial, and how we are seeing cultural values and positive role models, how we are really celebrating their culture and making consumers feel proud of themselves, their identity. That when it comes through, it is magic, and then when it falls flat or average, it's not really as relevant as many other commercials in the air. So it is. Being genuine about that fabric and that richness, even through a universal theme, is really, really key.
Ricardo, were there different types of checks in place this year, or things that the brand did differently than prior years to ensure this type of inclusivity?
Absolutely. I mean, from casting as an example, as we discussed, but then also looking internally at our own teams. And through the recruitment process, we hired a number of new positions this past year, and that was an added area of focus for us to make sure that we are a part of a diverse team. Because again, Carlos made the point, it is good for business. We get to better ideas, we get to better outcomes that therefore drive growth and drive the business. And that's why, through our agency partners, our own teams, the work we put out, but then also if you just scroll through our Instagram feed, making sure that representativity and inclusion is part of all of the content that we're putting out there. So that is something that not only we as a company have as a very strong set of values, but then also acting on those values throughout the entire funnel on how a Super Bowl spot is created, or now everyday posts that come out on Instagram or social media are created, and also the team behind it. I think that has been and will continue to be an important area of focus for us.
Hey, Janine, can I say one thing? What Ricardo said was so important, because it's not only does it make us feel good, but the science actually supports the fact that when you have diverse teams working on a project, what they do is they bring a lot of who they are to the party, and they try to convince their colleagues why their position is the right position. And what that ultimately does is it raises the IQ of the group. And when you do that, you have more opportunities to find those moments of innovation that really inspire great work. And so, McKinsey's done some studies. We've seen that, companies that are gender diverse at 34% more likely to outperform their peers. We've seen the same studies talk about companies that are ethnically diverse are equally at a point where they will outperform their peers. So it's not just about, feeling good. There is a very important reason that hits the bottom line for the brands that do this right.
Erin, how do you then measure the success of this? Is it a gut feeling? Is it well, that felt right? Or is there more to that? How do you at the end, next week, once the Super Bowl is over and you kind of go back and you look at all of these ads, how do you really know which ones hit the mark? And what will you be, sort of judging them on?
Sure. Well, Carlos has got the SIM score, so that's one way that we kind of
we'll talk about that before we,
clearly, yeah. I mean, that's one of the ways that we look at success, and so I think that's important. We looked at the Black Panther success, not just in terms of, how did consumers react creatively to it, and we test all of that sort of stuff, so we know, but we looked at the impact of the reach for it. So we had over 5 billion earned media impressions with this. And we saw engagement for consumers with our particular spot increase significantly. So there are very specific tools that we look at, that we monitor in terms of how people are reacting to the spot. Are they engaging? Is it driving, in the case of Lexus, was it driving search? Was it driving people into the dealers? I mean, at the end of the day, we want to sell cars. And did that actually help us, drive car sales? And in fact, we did see a significant increase for the LS. So there were very specific things that we looked at that that drove volume and touched the hearts and minds of the consumers that we were trying to reach.
Gotcha. Before we go, Carlos, maybe is there any Super Bowl ads that have been released so far that stand out in the tool?
Yes, Michelob Ultra is happy.
Very happy to hear that, Carlos.
In the top quartile for white non-Hispanics and African Americans as well, which is really difficult to bring two segments to the very top. But here at the ANA Alliance for Inclusive and Multicultural Marketing, we hope to keep guiding other marketers to achieve that level. So welcome more dialogue on this.
Yeah, and we'd love to see those results, after the game airs and you get more of the data in. We'd love to keep track of all of that as well.
Cool.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it and enjoy the game.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. That was great seeing you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm going to bring in my colleague, Jessica Wall, who spent some time virtually, of course, behind the scenes with Cheetos as they created their Super Bowl ad. Hello there, Jessica.
Hey, Janine. Great to see you.
Of course, same here. So we've been obviously doing this Anatomy of an Ad series for I don't even know, it's the last 6 years now, and you've done several of these. Obviously, the first time you've done one virtually and sitting on Zoom watching them shoot their ad, right?
It was a little bit different than the prior year. So in 2019, December of 2019, I went to the Avocados from Mexico shoot. And in December of 2020, I sat in my house and watched the Cheetos shoot. So just a little bit different, but it was still a great way to see all the work that goes into making these Super Bowl ads. And with me today, I have a great panel to discuss the anatomy of a Cheetos ad. So we'll give you a break, Janine, from moderating a panel. And I would like to introduce Rachel Ferdinando, the Senior VP and Chief Marketing Officer at Frito-Lay North America. Margaret Johnson, Chief Creative Officer at Goodby Silverstein & Partners, and Brian Buckley, the Director and Co-Founder of Hungry Man Productions. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for being here and being here to discuss It Wasn't Me, the latest Cheetos Super Bowl ad. So before we start the conversation, I think many people have probably seen the ad already because it was released yesterday. But just in case, why don't we show them the full 60-second ad and then we can start our conversation.
Did you steal my Cheetos again?
Just tell him it wasn't you.
But I caught you at the counter.
Wasn't me.
Saw you snacking on the sofa.
Wasn't me.
You even had him in the shower.
It wasn't me.
I even caught you on camera.
You the one who granted access to your snacks. Don't act surprised that she sneak behind your back. You gotta keep tabs before she empty that bag. Let's review the situation. Orange fingers, red flag. To keep you on stash, you gotta hide it better. If she asks where they are, you say forget her. Never admit to a word, and please don't upset her. And if she keep on snacking, I guess you let her.
Well, did you?
Wasn't me.
Oh. Okay.
Well, that's the first time that's ever worked.
New Cheetos Crunch Pop Mix.
So I've seen this spot multiple times, and I'm sure you've all seen this spot even more than I have, and I still sort of dance when I watch it.
Good.
Which is probably the sign of a successful Super Bowl commercial, right? If you're getting people to dance on the couch. Let's talk a little bit. Let's start pre-shoot. Rachel, how did this idea come together? You were coming off of last year's Super Bowl ad, which was the "You Can't Touch This" campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea, or Margaret, if you want to weigh in, how you came up with the idea for this "It Wasn't Me" ad?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, as you mentioned, last year at Super Bowl, we put Cheetos back on the stage for the first time in a decade. And that was the launch of our new platform, It's a Cheetos Thing. And even in that commercial, we really lean into our cult fans for inspiration. And at that time, we launched this idea of Cheetle and this sort of really amazing asset of the brand that kind of became someone's superpower to you can't touch things when you have Cheetle on your hands. Well, we went back to our fans again for inspiration. And we learned that actually people enjoy snacks even more when they borrow them from someone else. And that actually, you know, almost 50% of Americans, when we did a survey, actually admit to sneaking snacks from their friends or loved ones. So the big, you know, simple idea behind it was, well, what happens if you're caught trying to borrow or sneak someone's Cheetos? Well, the simple answer is it wasn't me. And of course, that led us to the Shaggy song, and it led us to It Wasn't Me as the concept overall. And so it really was the inspiration for the campaign. And it really shows just how irresistible new Crunch Pop Mix is, which is the follow-up to Cheetos Popcorn from last year. And you're surely going to want to get your hands on that.
And I'm curious, Margaret, did the pandemic inform the script at all, or how you pulled this together? It is a closed commercial, right? You have 3 people in a house, so you're not showing any kind of party or anything like that that might not play just right this year. But did the pandemic inform the campaign in any way?
You know, it didn't really affect the concept itself. It was a godsend that we were shooting it with someone like Brian Buckley here, because he has shot tons of Super Bowl commercials, but he's also very used to shooting celebrities. And so in this particular case, we wanted to make sure that we went with someone who was an ace on that front. So really the pandemic only affected kind of the way the thing was shot and like the time that it took. You know, things just take longer when you're wearing, you know, masks and face shields, and when some people are, you know, on Zoom at home. So we had these like mad text threads going when you had comments about, you know, what was happening on set. So it was more that, I think, than anything else.
So Brian, you are the king of Super Bowl commercial shoots. You have done 65 Super Bowl ads, is that right?
Yes. Yep. 65. Yeah.
So as someone who is more familiar with Super Bowl shoots than anybody else, how was shooting different due to the pandemic?
I mean, it's really interesting because you're dealing with a lot of emotion that comes with this, and it's scary for a lot of people. And then, you know, you're doing something, you're making a commercial. So I think there's this feeling like, is that really should be happening right now? And so, yeah, there's a lot of emotion, yet there's also that bringing together and making a spot such as this to make people laugh and make people feel good. Obviously we're moving product too, but you know, it's an important thing. And so the question of COVID, and far as the unknown factor, what could go wrong starts from the minute you get the job, right up to the day until you wrap, because people get sick. You could lose crew members at any time. So testing is really key. Making sure a minimum amount of people are on the set. And our actors, you know, they're nervous. You know, I mean, the night that we finished, we were deemed COVID central. The #1 place in the world was Los Angeles, and Ashton and Mila came in, and they were shaken by that a bit. And so you got to make them feel that we're doing everything to be safe. And which I think we did successfully, and everyone works really hard at it. So in the end, you get a spot where everyone's having fun, obviously. So that was good, you know.
So were you all staying in the same hotel or anything like that? Did you really quarantine before the shoot? Rachel, you had to travel to LA to get to the shoot.
Yeah, so we followed all the protocols around quarantining, pre-testing before we even left our home state, so that we were sort of clear to travel. Then when we arrived, we were in a kind of bubble of, negative tested, quarantined sort of crew from an agency and a client perspective. And then when we were there, we had to, allow a certain period of time, then, further testing, daily testing, following all of the social distancing rules. We were, even when we were in the same location, we were having our pre-production connects via Zoom in order to just really maintain as much safety as we could. That safety was by far the most important thing in all of this, in how we handled ourselves and how we prepared. I would just say as well, one of the other things that was a different we knew that the sheer complexity of what we were going to do under COVID conditions and under the pandemic, we really planned ahead. So, we started creative process earlier. We tried to get as much ahead of it as we could, notwithstanding that, as Brian said, the situation was changing so fast and getting more and more critical in LA. And so we just had to always be planning and being agile and adjusting as we went. And so, it really was a team effort to make it happen.
I think that's really key, that it is a team effort, like client, production company, because there are a lot of costs associated to COVID testing, and there's a lot of time, and talent that can only stay for X amount of time, and suddenly most of that time you're trying to get crews through testing and what have you. So it's been wonderful. That was a wonderful experience of everyone working together to deliver and to make a safe environment. And there was a lot of laughter on the set because people felt relaxed, and we did what we needed to do to provide that safe environment.
Did it take a little while to loosen things up on the set, or do you feel like people were relaxed from the get-go?
Not with those two.
Tell me what it was like to work with all three of them, to work with Mila and Ashton, and also to work with Shaggy.
Well, Mila and Ashton, just a real quick aside, the first time I had done something with Ashton years ago, but when I did my first meeting Zoom with them, they didn't know they were going to sing. That was funny. So we did a Zoom meeting. We're like, what? We're singing? I thought we were talking this. And then Mila's like, I can't sing. Ashton's like, I can't sing. Oh my God. So they had this whole panic attack. And then Ashton took his shirt off on the Zoom and he started singing like he's in the shower. It was a miracle. I was like, oh my God, this is a meeting. I don't think that would happen if we did a face-to-face maybe it would have been at a coffee store. But anyway, it never slowed down from there. They just were that way. And then the same with Shaggy. When he came on set, I didn't know what my expectations were, because you work with a lot of musicians and the acting isn't what they do, right? So he came in and he was just dialed in from the get-go. He was just wonderful. I'm very supportive, and he's actually pretty chill. Jamaican chill, very chill.
I think too with Mila and Ashton, you could really feel their connection. Like it really came through.
Yes.
On camera, you could just feel that they really have a connection, and they were playful and giddy and excited to be there, and that was just great.
Yeah, it was interesting. The chemistry was amazing between the three of them as well. That not obviously just not just Mila and Ashton, but then when Shaggy was a part of certain scenes, and then they got to connect and they got to talk off camera, they had a great chemistry, and they were just having a lot of fun and really enjoying the concept.
Yeah, like my favorite moment of the shoot was during lunch. I look over and Ashton and Mila are together eating by themselves by a swimming pool. Like they broke for lunch, not to go into their trailer, just to hang out with each other. And they were staring around. And I was like, that was a magical moment, just seeing that, like how much they drove to set together. They left together. And these guys have been in, lockdown for forever, and they couldn't leave each other's side, which was really special to me.
Yeah. At one point, Mila said, "This is like date night," and they it was like date night because of the contrast of being, in lockdown and quarantine for so long. This felt like time for them, obviously, as well as with their art too. So it was fun to hear that.
Why don't we take a look at, as we mentioned, Ad Age could not be on set with all of you, but we did get some video from the set and had some conversations. So let's take a quick look at our Anatomy of an Ad video. And after this event, if people want to see the full video, they can go to adage.com/adanatomy.
Caught you at the counter.
Wasn't me.
Saw you snacking on the sofa.
Wasn't me.
You even had him in the shower.
It wasn't me.
I even caught you on camera.
It's the Cheetos and it's her and she's saying it wasn't me, and you know, but the evidence right there is on her fingers. And I mean, it's the same concept of wasn't me. It was like, but yeah, but you were on camera. And it wasn't me.
I think that song came out like 20 years ago, and I was like 22, and we were shooting that 70s show together when this song came out.
It wasn't necessarily that we were looking for a music idea to follow MC Hammer. It just happened that way because the idea was so good.
I can't touch this.
Well, we launched It's a Cheetos Thing, which is the tagline, last year with the MC Hammer spot, and had a ton of success with that commercial. And then the Shaggy spot just felt like a natural evolution of that campaign.
Touch this. You can't touch this.
You have Mila and Ashton who were on that Sunday show. I mean, obviously they go back that far in time. And it's interesting because they're just, again, they're so in love. Like many of the people at crew, everyone's like, wow, like that's just so nice to see love, like especially now. And I think with Shaggy, you know, he's an icon, right? He's an icon, and again, a really spiritually positive person. They all just fell into sync, you know, perfect sync with one another. I wasn't surprised.
Too much?
Just stick to the line I gave you.
Yeah. It's like working with your best friend. It can go one way or the other, right? And we are incredibly codependent on each other. So this just feeds into our codependency, which is great for us. I mean, it's lovely. And Shaggy's great. He's funny. He's Shaggy.
Being on set was awesome with these three people. The chemistry and banter among the three of them was incredible.
You could feel the excitement on set. And at one point they were so excited that they ended up getting into like a Cheetos fight. And then Shaggy got into the Cheetos fight too. So there were Cheetos being thrown everywhere. And it was kind of wild.
So if people want to see more of that video, they can go to adage.com/adanatomy. And as well, for all of our Super Bowl footage, you can go to adage.com/Super Bowl. So we have a few more minutes. I would love to hear about your choice of humor this year for the Super Bowl. Why do you think humor is hitting the right tone, especially after the year we've all had?
Well, I'll start. Margaret, please, add anything. I think perhaps more than ever, we know that the country is looking for small moments of joy and escape. And we really, the purpose for us at Frito-Lay is to transform moments with joy. That's really at the core of our purpose. And we put purpose, very high and at the forefront of what we do. And so we kind of said, wow, more than ever does the country need a bit of joy and a bit of release. And so that was really what inspired this work. And so we've really built our Super Bowl campaigns around much needed smiles to bring to millions and millions of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add to that is just, as a creative person, it's always fun to work on Cheetos because the brand is all about mischief. And it kind of is a terrific filter for the creative work and even leads you to the type of people that you cast in commercials. Ashton and Mila and Shaggy were all perfect for Cheetos because they're kind of mischievous people. They're cheeky in their humor and they just have the right personality for the brand.
And Brian, did you come on board before the stars of the ad, or did you know who you were going to be working with when you took this project?
No, we didn't know. I just saw the board. It came in I was like, this is amazing. Shaggy, the song, I love the song. Like the song is like, no one's ever used this song before in a spot. I'm like, oh my God, like you never find that. And then to see the concept was so good, I was in because during lockdown, my wife kept on stealing all my stuff. Because then you got like 5 minutes. You couldn't go to the store. You were like, it was unbelievable. So it was. I just love the spot. I love the spot. And they hit me up in September. Like, you guys are early, like September. The planning that these guys did, and that's no lie. You were ahead of anyone I've seen and so well thought out. Like it was so well thought out the whole way. It was it was incredible. Made it a great journey,
We've done enough Super Bowl spots together, Rachel, that we know to start early. We have learned that along the way.
We've done much earlier a few times.
Oh, sorry, Rachel. What did you?
No, I was just saying that, because I think the cycle we've been through many times, we really capture the learnings every time, and planning and preparation and how we actually work through the process is so critical, and couldn't have been more important during a pandemic for sure.
So how much earlier did you start planning for this year? You said Brian said that he was contacted in September. So when did you start working on your other Super Bowl campaigns?
Yeah, so we started. So go ahead, Margaret. You jump in.
No, you.
Okay.
You probably remember the time.
We definitely spend a period of time immediately after the Super Bowl where we're really digesting learnings. But we kind of, as we were planning ahead, we said, we really. And candidly, we're still always, looking at how things are going to shape up, what's going to happen. We didn't even know whether the season would kick off in a normal fashion. There's so many unknowns, but we said, okay, if we assume that it's happening, let's look towards kind of springtime, and let's start having the conversation and start the process. And so we started as early as kind of mid-spring. And then, we kind of, went through the creative development process. And I think, we just had such a strong idea so early on that enabled us to, really ensure that we worked with our cult fans to help shape it, make it better as we were developing the creative. And then that allowed us to really think through what were the, who and what were the right partners to work with. And then, of course, Brian came onto the scene, which we couldn't have been more thrilled to have as a part of this journey.
And Brian, this was your first time working with Frito-Lay, right?
I think this decade. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
At this point, I'm like, wait, let me think. Like, yeah, it was. And it was, like I said, it was a great process. Because to me, planning ahead makes our lives so much easier, because when you start going through the celeb searches, or in this case, COVID, finding locations, you were way ahead of the curve. So you're not caught in this last second sort of jam,
All right. Well, thank you all so much again, Rachel, Margaret, and Brian, for joining us. I think it sounded like you had a lot of fun, and if and when travel resumes, I really better be able to get to the next shoot in person. As much as the Zoom was great, it would have been great to see you all in person. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to welcome back Janine Poggi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks a ton.
Thanks, everyone. That was great and so much fun. Like, I know you didn't get to be there in person, but even just being on a Zoom watching that had to be enjoyable.
We didn't talk about Shaggy walking down the stairs. There's the scene where he does that like rap and he walks down the stairs. He just nailed it. Like, I don't think they did that many takes. I meant to ask Brian how many takes that took, because I think he was just literally a rock star. He just nailed it, and it was so fun to watch. So yeah,
that was awesome. And make sure you check out the rest on our site, because it's definitely worth the watch. Thank you so much, Jessica, for doing that.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much to our panelists who joined us today. It is certainly poised to be a very different Super Bowl, and we're excited to tune in. I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this happen, our co-presenting sponsors, Shutterstock and Twitter, and our supporting sponsors, Sentient Decision Science and TalkWalker. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and keep checking back on adage.com/Super Bowl for all the breaking news and analysis around all of the Super Bowl commercials. Thanks, everyone.